Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with How I Discovered the Great, the One, the Only, J.S. Bach. Now, I did a video called, My Bach Problem, which some of you have seen, maybe a lot of you, and it's still getting some very, very strange responses from people because, I like a lot of Bach, but I also don't like a lot of Bach, and I'm pretty straightforward about it. And people are just horrified that I don't deify Bach. And I don't. I just don't. I think he's a guy, a great composer, very great composer, one of the greatest. Okay, fine, good. That doesn't mean you like it. I can respect it. I can acknowledge that, but that doesn't mean that it speaks to me the way other composers speak to me. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. And we're all in the same boat. But I did discover Bach, and maybe in a way which explains a little bit about why I don't, put him on an absolute pinnacle that nothing else approaches. However much I respect what he did, because he was a genius. And I love counterpoint. I adore counterpoint. It's that stuff by Bach that I kind of like. Anyway, how did it happen? Well, my musical upbringing was not Baroque oriented, and it was classical to the extent that my parents enjoyed classical music. My mother liked classical music. She had a record collection that I listened to. It had no Bach in it. And my father, who was a piano prodigy, basically, he had the opportunity to, do Juilliard and all that stuff and won all kinds of piano competitions and hated it so much that he gave it up completely and never spoke of it. It was only after he died that we found all of his awards and these things from the piano competitions and from his childhood that he refused to speak about. And when I wanted to play the piano, he was not discouraging, but he wasn't encouraging. He wasn't interested in it at all. And if you talked about Bach, because by then I was heavily into classical music, he would just make a face. Bach and Schumann were like his bête noirs because he wanted to play jazz, and he had some cranky old piano teacher who only made him practice the classics, and it turned him off entirely. So there was nothing there that taught me that I should particularly revere Bach. That can be a defect in my musical upbringing, or it might have been a positive thing. It could go either way. I think it was positive, actually, because I think it teaches one to be fearless in making choices, which is what this is all about, isn't it? It's not about finding a temple to worship in. It's about discovering great music and the music that suits you best. So where did I first encounter Bach? Well, I knew who he was. I knew the toccata and fugue in D minor. I'd seen Fantasia, but that was horror movie music. That's how it was used. That was the way we saw it, basically, and heard it. And I thought, oh, God, the creaky horror movie. Why would I want to listen to that? But, I enjoyed it as music representative of certain highly negative emotional states. So there was that element of Bach. And eventually, there were some other things that I heard that I just didn't like very much. I just thought they were boring. I really did. Until I started taking piano lessons. Now, when I started taking piano lessons, I had a friend, let's put it this way, I had a friend in high school who was a wonderful pianist, and he played all kinds of things, and he was playing the two-part inventions, and I thought they were fascinating. The three-part inventions I thought were really even more fascinating, but way harder because they had three parts and you needed three hands to play them. Because Bach, of course, inculcates absolute independence of the hands and the digits and, down to your finger joints. But the two-part inventions I thought I could hack. So I started playing, taking piano lessons, and I told my piano teacher I wanted to play Bach's two-part inventions. And so he said, okay, we could work on them. That's what they're for. They're there to teach you how to learn how to get independence of the hands and learn about music. So I got them. I got my Urtext edition of the two-part inventions, and I started pounding away at them. And oh my God, what a mess I made of them. I was such a horrible musician. I really was. But I found them absolutely fascinating. And so my real entree into Bach was through the keyboard music and through playing it, trying to play it. I didn't hate it because I couldn't play it well. I just loved the people who could play it well. And so I started listening to it. But at the same time, there was a pull in the opposite direction, a contrary pull, because I was a member of the International Preview Society. Remember that record club where they would send you things that they would license from major labels, and they would send you not terribly well pressed quite often, but boxes, and they were higher end than the Columbia Record Club and all that stuff that I had joined previously and given up on. And one of the things they sent me completely unannounced, because if you didn't tell them you didn't want something, you got something. What I got was the Bach Sonatas and Partitas on Deutsche Grammophon with Nathan Milstein. Now, today, I revere those performances just hugely, tremendously. It's the apotheosis of great violin playing, and they are. But the music itself, I put it on and I hated it. Oh, guys, why would anyone want to listen, I said to myself, to a solo violin for weeks at a time? To me, a solo violin was something that belonged in an orchestra with lots of other violins, or in a string quartet, or in something. But just by itself, it struck me as an instrument so limited in expression, and so, and these pieces were big and long. I mean, that the chaconne was endless, and it drove me crazy. I couldn't listen to this stuff, literally couldn't. I found it so incredibly off-putting. And it took me a long time to begin to appreciate, what Bach achieved in writing these extraordinarily large pieces for just a solo violin. I mean, eventually, as I began to appreciate and enjoy music more, I understood that for Bach, the forms of music existed independently of the medium in which he was working. In other words, he could do anything with anything. And in order to appreciate, I think, enjoy works like the chaconne and these other things, you had to begin to appreciate other works in similar form for other forces. Because the point, of course, is there's the virtuoso element, the fact that it was extraordinary that violins could do this. But more than that, it was the fact that he could do the same thing as the organ Passacaglia in C minor, for example, as a piece for solo violin. I mean, that these things were infinitely adaptable, and that was part of Bach's genius. But that was something that didn't come until way later. It was a process. And then, of course, in the high school glee club and whatnot, we sang Bach. And that was a big help. We did some of the motets, and I thought they were gorgeous, and they were fun to sing. They were really fun to sing. We enjoyed that. We did the Magnificat. We didn't do it well. It's very hard to go, I mean, I could do it back then. I can't do it now, but we could do it better. And so, singing it and hearing it, and eventually, it soaked in, but it took a long time. And it's not like I'm waiting for some sort of epiphany to happen in my understanding of Bach. I get Bach. I know Bach. I know Bach very well. I know even the things I don't like, I know very well, because as a critic, I'm called upon to listen to it and pass judgment on performances. And contrary to popular belief, you don't have to like something to do a good critique. You don't have to like it at all. You just have to be able to understand what it requires, what the great performances are, and how well this one measures up to those. I mean, that's the job. And I think I can do that pretty well, so I don't worry about it anymore. But it was really a roundabout way, and it was a process where there were things that struck me as dazzling and things that really just turned me off. And the things that really turned me on were the things that were the most abstract, the things that had the most pure counterpoint, the 2 and 3 part inventions, the organ trios, the well-tempered clavier, these pieces where I could appreciate the intertwining of melodic strands and the way Bach structures these works, which really is extraordinary. I mean, that there's nobody quite like him when it comes to that kind of musical fabrication. The other things, the religious music and something else, that took me a lot longer. And the things that people sometimes just, screamed about as astonishing masterpieces just didn't strike me as that appealing. The orchestral suites I've never particularly enjoyed. The Brandenburg concertos I can take or leave. The violin concertos don't do it for me. But that's me. And that's the way we all respond to music. And, the point is not to be ashamed or intimidated by the snobs and the cranks and the cultists into thinking there's something wrong with you because you like or don't like something. I'm very happy that my relationship with Bach is what it is, because I think it's made me a better listener, a better critic, and I think a far more secure human being, especially when faced with, the cultural afflatus that surrounds some of these pieces. Anyway, so that's my experience in getting into Bach, and I'm wondering what yours was. Was it drummed into you from the womb, or did you have the opportunity to gradually approach it bit by bit and exercise your right of choice? Or was it something in the middle? Let me know. I think it's an interesting thing. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and take care.